Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant and watched the stars through the main screen. The old destroyer had been his home for 3 years now, and he knew every sound she made, every vibration in her hull, every way she moved through space. The ship was not young anymore. Built 20 years ago when the war with the Vorthan Empire was just starting, but she was still strong and her crew was the best he had ever served with. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the gentle beeping of sensors. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Bennett sat at her station, checking reports from the different parts of the ship. She was smart and careful, the kind of officer who made sure everything was done right the first time. Bobby Clark was down in the engine room, making sure their old power systems kept running smooth. Danny Pierce was at the weapons station, running tests on their guns and missiles like he did every day. Amy Rodriguez worked at communications, listening to the radio signals from the colony below and from space around them. New Terra was a small world with 3 moons and lots of rocks floating around it. The planet had mines that dug up rare metals, and about 50,000 people lived there in small cities and towns. It was not an important place in the big picture of human space. Just a quiet colony on the edge of everything where people worked hard and tried to build good lives for their families. The Defiant was there to patrol the area and make sure pirates or other trouble stayed away. Morrison liked these quiet missions. After years of fighting in the big war, it felt good to protect people who just wanted to live in peace. His crew felt the same way. They had all seen enough fighting and death, and now they were happy to watch over miners and farmers and shopkeepers who never hurt anyone. The captain was drinking coffee and reading the daily reports when Amy Rodriguez turned around in her chair with a worried look on her face. She had been monitoring the long-range sensors, watching for any ships that might come into their area of space. Most days nothing happened, but today was different. "Captain, I am getting some strange readings on the edge of the system," she said. "Multiple contacts, very large, moving this way." Morrison put down his coffee and walked over to her station. The sensor display showed 12 big contacts and many smaller ones, all moving toward New Terra at high speed. The computer was trying to identify what kind of ships they were, but the signals were not like anything in their database of human vessels. "How long until they get here?" Morrison asked. "About 6 hours at their current speed," Amy said. "Sir, these are not human ships. The computer says they match Vorthan designs." Lisa Bennett looked up from her reports with alarm. The Vorthan Empire was humanity's worst enemy. Aliens who had been trying to destroy or enslave every human world they could find. Their ships were bigger and stronger than human vessels, and they never showed mercy to anyone who got in their way. Morrison felt his stomach drop as he realized what this meant. The nearest human fleet was 6 days away, much too far to help. The colony below had no defenses except for the Defiant, and one old destroyer could not fight 12 Vorthan dreadnoughts and win. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Morrison ordered. "Tell them we have Vorthan ships incoming and request immediate assistance. Then start working on evacuation plans for the colony." Amy started sending the emergency message while Lisa began calculating how long it would take to evacuate 50,000 people. The numbers were not good. Even if they used every ship on the planet, including cargo haulers and mining vessels, they could not get everyone off-world before the fleet arrived. Morrison walked back to his command chair and sat down hard. He had faced difficult situations before, but nothing like this. The Defiant was a good ship with a brave crew, but she was old and her weapons were not as powerful as the newest designs. Her shields worked at about 60% of what they were supposed to, and she had no escort ships to help in a fight. Bobby Clark's voice came over the intercom from engineering. "Captain, I am seeing the sensor readings down here. Those are big ships heading our way. What are your orders?" "Keep the engines running hot, Bobby. We might need to move fast," Morrison replied. Danny Pierce turned around from the weapons station. "Sir, I can have all our guns ready to fire in 10 minutes. Our missiles are loaded and the targeting computers are working fine. But against 12 dreadnoughts," he did not finish the sentence, but everyone understood what he meant. Morrison looked around at his bridge crew and saw the same thing in all their faces. They were scared, but they were not going to run away. These were people who had joined the Navy to protect human colonies from exactly this kind of attack. They knew the odds were terrible, but they also knew that 50,000 innocent people were counting on them. "Lisa, what does Fleet Command say about our request for help?" Morrison asked. "They acknowledge our message and say they are sending ships, but the nearest fleet will not arrive for 6 days," she replied. "They recommend we withdraw and preserve our vessel." Morrison was quiet for a long moment, thinking about what that meant. If the Defiant left, the colony would be defenseless. Devorthan would land troops and take over the planet, enslaving or killing everyone who lived there. Following orders meant abandoning 50,000 people to a terrible fate. "Bring up the personnel roster," Morrison said. "I want to talk to the whole crew." Lisa worked at her computer and brought up the list of 43 men and women who served on the Defiant. They were good people from all over human space, young and old, EXPERIENCED, veterans and fresh recruits who had never seen real combat. They had families and dreams and lives they wanted to get back to someday. Morrison activated the ship-wide intercom so his voice would reach every part of the vessel. Down in engineering, Bobby Clark stopped what he was doing to listen. In the weapons bay, Danny Pierce's team put down their tools. In the medical bay and the mess hall and the cargo holds, everyone stopped to hear what their captain had to say. "This is the captain speaking," Morrison began. "I need to tell you all something important. We have 12 Vorthan dreadnoughts heading for this system, and they will be here in 6 hours. Fleet Command has ordered us to withdraw because one destroyer cannot fight that many enemy ships and survive." He paused, knowing that his next words would change everything for his crew. "But if we leave, 50,000 people in the colony below will die or become slaves. I cannot give that order. I am asking for volunteers to stay and fight. Anyone who wants to leave can take the shuttles to the surface and wait for rescue. I will not think less of anyone who makes that choice." The intercom was quiet for a moment. Then Bobby Clark's voice came through loud and clear. "Captain, my engines are not going anywhere. We stay and fight." Danny Pierce spoke next. "My guns are ready, sir. Let them come." One by one, every member of the crew reported in: the cook, the mechanics, the medical staff, the junior officers, even the newest recruiter had only been on the ship for 2 months. Not one person asked to leave. Morrison felt proud and sad at the same time. He was proud to serve with such brave people, but sad that he might be leading them all to their deaths. Still, he knew they were making the right choice. Sometimes you had to stand up to bullies even when you knew you might lose, because some things were more important than being safe. "All right then," Morrison said into the intercom. "Battle stations, everyone. We have work to do." The Vorten fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Terra system, like a pack of metal wolves. War Commander Thexlon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Render, and looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. 12 massive dreadnoughts and 30 smaller ships made up his battle group. More than enough firepower to crush any human resistance and claim this mining world for the Empire. Thexlon was an old warrior who had fought humans for most of his adult life. He knew their tactics and their weaknesses. Humans were brave but foolish, always trying to fight battles they could not win instead of surrendering when they should. This made them dangerous in large numbers, but easy to defeat when they were alone and outnumbered. The tactical officer reported what the sensors were showing. "War Commander, we detect one human destroyer in orbit around the planet. She appears to be an older vessel, probably 20 years old. No other human ships in the system." Thexlon made a sound that was like laughter, but harsher. One old destroyer against his entire fleet was not even a real fight. The humans must be desperate to think such a small force could stop him. Still, he would follow proper procedure and offer them a chance to surrender before destroying them. "Open a communication channel to the human ship," Thexlon ordered. On the bridge of the Defiant, Amy Rodriguez picked up the incoming signal and put it on the main screen. The alien commander appeared, tall and gray with 4 arms and cold black eyes that showed no mercy. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough like gravel. "Human vessel, this is War Commander Thexlon of the Vorthan Imperial Navy. You are greatly outnumbered and have no chance of victory. Withdraw from this system immediately, and you will be allowed to leave with your lives. Remain, and you will be destroyed along with the colony you think to protect. Morrison stood up from his command chair and straightened his uniform. He looked directly at the alien commander on the screen and spoke in a clear, strong voice that carried to every part of his ship. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Navy destroyer USS Defiant. You are trespassing in human space and threatening civilian populations. You have 30 seconds to reverse course before we open fire. Vexlon stared at the human captain in disbelief. Did this tiny ship really think it could challenge his entire fleet? The war commander had seen human arrogance before, but this was beyond anything he had experienced. Perhaps humans had become even more foolish since his last battle with them. You cannot be serious, human. I have 12 dreadnoughts. You have one old destroyer. Simple mathematics should tell you how this will end. Morrison's expression did not change. 29 seconds. Alien, choose wisely. Dexlon cut the communication channel and turned to his tactical officer. The human commander is clearly insane. All ships will advance in standard formation. We will make quick work of this fool and then proceed with the invasion. The Vorthan fleet began moving toward New Terra in a formation they had used successfully against human forces many times before. The dreadnoughts formed a line with smaller ships protecting their flanks, creating overlapping fields of fire that could destroy anything that tried to attack them. It was a formation designed to show overwhelming power and break the will of any enemy before the shooting even started. Morrison watched the enemy ships advance on his tactical display and felt his heart beating faster. In a few minutes, the shooting would start and many of his crew would probably die. But they had chosen to be here, and they would do their duty no matter what happened. Bobby, give me everything the engines have, Morrison said into his communicator. You got it, Captain. I have been pushing the power systems for the last hour. We can go faster than we have ever gone before, but I cannot promise how long it will last. Denny, are the weapons ready? All guns loaded and aimed, sir. Missiles are ready to fire. I have been studying Vorthan ship designs, and I think I found some weak spots we can hit. Amy, keep listening to their communications. If you hear anything useful, let me know right away. Already on it. Captain, they are using standard military frequencies and not bothering to encrypt their signals. They do not think we are dangerous. Enough to worry about. Morrison smiled grimly. That mistake might be the only advantage they had, but he would take it. He had spent the last 6 hours studying everything the Navy knew about Vorthan tactics and ship designs. Most human commanders tried to fight them at long range, using missiles and staying far away from their powerful guns. But Morrison had a different plan. Lisa, plot a course directly toward the center of their formation. Maximum speed. Lisa Bennett looked at her captain with surprise. Sir, that will take us right into the middle of their fleet. We will be surrounded. That is exactly what I want, Morrison said. Those big ships are designed to fight at long range. Up close, they will have trouble targeting a fast-moving ship without hitting each other. The Defiant suddenly accelerated toward the Vorthan fleet at maximum speed. On the alien flagship, the tactical officer reported this with confusion. War Commander, the human ship is charging directly at us. This is not standard human tactics. Dexlon was puzzled. Human ships usually tried to stay far away and fight with missiles, using their speed to avoid close combat. This direct attack made no sense. Perhaps the human captain really was insane. All ships maintain formation and prepare to fire when the enemy comes within range. Dexlon ordered. Morrison watched the distance close between his ship and the enemy fleet. The Vorthan dreadnoughts were huge, each one 3 times the size of the Defiant, with thick armor and powerful weapons. But they were also slow and built for fighting other big ships, not small, fast ones. Danny, target the ship on the left side of their formation. I want you to hit them with everything we have when we get close. Understood, sir. I am aiming for their reactor housing. If I can punch through their armor there, we might get a big explosion. The Defiant raced between 2 Vorthan dreadnoughts like a small fish swimming between whales. The alien ships tried to turn their guns to follow the human destroyer, but she was moving too fast and they were too close together. Morrison had found the weakness in their formation that he was looking for. Fire! Morrison shouted. Danny Pierce triggered every weapon the Defiant had. Laser cannons and railguns blazed away at point-blank range, while missiles streaked toward their target. The Vorthan ship, caught completely by surprise, took massive damage to its hull and engines. Direct hit on their reactor. Danny reported with excitement. She is going to blow. The Vorthan dreadnought Bone Crusher exploded in a ball of fire and metal that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. The blast damaged to other alien ships and created a gap in their formation that Morrison immediately exploited. Take us through that gap, Lisa. Full speed. The Defiant shot through the opening like a bullet, emerging on the far side of the Vorthan formation before they could react. Morrison had achieved something no human commander had done before. He had destroyed a Vorthan dreadnought in single combat on the alien flagship. Dexlon stared at the debris field where one of his most powerful ships had been just moments before. The human destroyer was now behind his formation, turning for another attack run. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. All ships break formation and pursue the human vessel, Dexlon ordered angrily. I want that ship destroyed immediately. But Morrison was already moving to his next target. The explosion had created a debris field that would hide his ship from enemy sensors, and he intended to use every piece of wreckage to his advantage. The real battle was just beginning, and the Defiant had proven that even an old destroyer could bite back when cornered. Amy Rodriguez was monitoring Vorthan communications and heard the confusion in their voices. They had expected an easy victory, but now they were dealing with tactics they had never seen before. The human captain was not fighting like humans were supposed to fight, and it was making them uncertain. Captain, they are splitting up to try to surround us, Amy reported, but they are also arguing about what to do next. I think we surprised them. Morrison nodded as he watched enemy ships spreading out across the tactical display. Good confusion was exactly what he wanted. A confused enemy made mistakes, and mistakes were opportunities for a smaller force to win against overwhelming odds. Bobby, how are the engines holding up? So far, so good, Captain, but we are running everything past safe limits. If we keep this up for too long, something is going to break. Just keep us moving, Bobby. Speed is the only thing keeping us alive. Right now, the Defiant raced through the debris field from the destroyed dreadnought, using chunks of metal and machinery as cover, while Morrison planned his next move. He had proven that his ship could hurt the enemy, but 11 dreadnoughts were still a lot of firepower to face. He would need to be smart and lucky to keep his crew alive long enough to save the colony. But for the first time since the battle started, Morrison felt like they might actually have a chance. The Vorthan had expected an easy victory against a weak opponent, but instead they were fighting a cornered animal with nothing to lose. And sometimes that made all the difference in the world. Morrison knew that destroying one enemy ship was just the beginning. 11 Vorthan dreadnoughts were still hunting his vessel, and they would not make the same mistake twice. He needed to change his tactics and find new ways to hurt the enemy while keeping his own ship alive. The debris field from the destroyed Bone Crusher was huge, filled with twisted metal and broken machinery that drifted through space like a deadly cloud. Morrison realized this wreckage could be his best weapon against the remaining alien ships. Large pieces of debris would confuse enemy sensors and give the Defiant places to hide between attacks. Lisa, take us deeper into the debris field, Morrison ordered. Use the biggest pieces as cover and keep us moving. I do not want them to get a clear shot at us. The Defiant slipped between chunks of destroyed dreadnought like a shark swimming through a reef. The ship's hull rang with small impacts as tiny pieces of metal bounced off their armor. But the bigger pieces hid them from Vorthan targeting systems. Amy Rodriguez was listening carefully to enemy communications, trying to understand how the aliens were reacting to their unexpected losses. What she heard made her smile for the first time since the battle started. Captain, they are having trouble coordinating their attacks, Amy reported. The Vorthan use a very organized command structure, and losing a ship so quickly has confused their battle plans. Some captains want to charge in after us, while others want to maintain formation and wait for us to come to them. Morrison saw an opportunity in this confusion. If the enemy fleet was arguing about tactics, he could use that against them. But first, he needed to make their coordination problems even worse. Amy, can you identify their communication relay ship? Amy worked at her console, analyzing the radio signals coming from different Vorten vessels. After a few minutes, she pointed to a contact on the tactical display. That one, sir. It is smaller than the dreadnoughts, but heavily equipped with communication gear. All their battle orders are being relayed through that ship. Morrison studied the enemy formation and saw that the relay ship was positioned in the center, protected by several larger vessels. Getting close enough to attack it would be dangerous, but if they could destroy or damage the alien communication system, the enemy fleet would have trouble working together. Danny, I need you to calculate a firing solution for that communication ship. We are going to make a run at it. Danny Pierce looked at the tactical display and shook his head. Sir, that ship is surrounded by dreadnoughts. We would have to get very close to have a good shot, and they would tear us apart before we could escape. Not if we use the right approach, Morrison said. Bobby, can you give me a short burst of maximum power to the engines? Just for a few minutes? Bobby Clark's voice came over the intercom from engineering. I can do it, Captain, but it will stress the reactor beyond safe limits. If something goes wrong, we could lose power completely. Do it, Morrison ordered. Lisa, plot a course that takes us around the edge of the debris field and then straight at that relay ship. We will use the wreckage to mask our approach until the last possible moment. The Defiant began moving through the debris field, staying hidden behind large pieces of the destroyed Bone Crusher. Morrison watched the tactical display as enemy ships searched for them, but the wreckage was making it hard for Vorthen sensors to get a clear picture of where the human destroyer was hiding. When they reached the edge of the debris field, Morrison gave the order to attack. The Defiant burst out of the wreckage at maximum speed, racing toward the Vorthen communication ship before the enemy could react. The sudden appearance of the human destroyer caught the aliens off guard, and for a crucial few seconds, no one fired at them. Danny Pierce had his targeting computer locked onto the enemy relay ship, and when they got within range, he fired everything they had. Missiles and laser beams streaked across space, hitting the communication vessel before it could take evasive action. The ship exploded in a bright flash, taking the Vorthen fleet's coordination with it. Direct hit, Danny shouted. That relay ship is gone. Immediately, the organized Vorthen formation began to fall apart. Without their communication hub, individual ship captains could not coordinate their movements or share targeting information. Some ships moved to attack the Defiant, while others tried to maintain defensive positions, creating gaps in their formation that Morrison could exploit. Take us back into the debris field, Morrison ordered as enemy fire began to fill the space around them. We hurt them. Now we need to stay alive long enough to hurt them again. The Defiant raced back toward the safety of the wreckage as Vorthen ships fired at them from multiple directions. Laser beams and missiles filled the space behind them, but Lisa Bennett's skilled piloting kept them ahead of the enemy fire. They made it back to the debris field with only minor damage to their rear armor. Bobby Clark had been working miracles in the engine room, pushing their old reactor and drive systems far beyond their design limits. He had rerouted power from non-essential systems like crew quarters and food preparation to boost their speed and weapons. He had even found a way to improve their damaged shield generators by connecting them to backup power supplies. Captain, I have increased shield efficiency by 20%, Bobby reported. It will not last forever, but it should help protect us during our next attack run. Amy Rodriguez was monitoring the chaos in Vorthen communications as enemy captains tried to reorganize without their relay ship. Different commanders were giving conflicting orders, and some ships were moving in opposite directions. Sir, they are really confused now, Amy said with satisfaction. I am hearing at least 3 different captains trying to take command of the fleet. They cannot agree on whether to pursue us aggressively or form a defensive line. Morrison realized this was exactly the kind of situation he had hoped to create. A divided enemy was a weak enemy, and he intended to take full advantage of their confusion. But he also knew that the Vorthen commanders would eventually sort out their problems and reorganize. He needed to strike again before they could coordinate their next attack. Danny, pick out the 2 closest enemy ships and calculate firing solutions for both of them. We are going to hit them fast and then disappear back into the wreckage. The Defiant made another attack run, this time targeting two Vorthan ships that had separated from the main group while chasing them. Denny Pierce's weapons found their marks on both vessels, causing significant damage to their engines and weapons systems. One ship lost power completely and began drifting helplessly through space. Barson was starting to understand something important about Vorthan ship design. Their vessels were built for fighting other large warships in organized fleet battles. They had thick armor and powerful weapons, but they were not designed to fight a small, fast opponent that attacked from unexpected angles and then disappeared. The human destroyer was like a mosquito fighting elephants. Each individual attack did not do much damage compared to the size of the enemy fleet, but the constant harassment was wearing them down and keeping them off balance. More importantly, every minute the battle continued was another minute that the colony below remained safe. War Commander Vexlin was becoming increasingly frustrated with the human tactics. This was not how space battles were supposed to work. The humans should have either surrendered when faced with overwhelming odds or fought a conventional battle that his superior firepower could win quickly. Instead, they were using the destroyed ship's debris as a hiding place and attacking his vessels like pirates. All ships spread out and search the debris field. Vexlon ordered that human destroyer cannot hide forever. When you find it, destroy it immediately. But Morrison had no intention of hiding forever. He was planning his next move, studying the enemy formation for weaknesses he could exploit. The loss of their communication ship had forced the Vorthan fleet to spread out, and that gave him opportunities to attack isolated vessels. Lisa Bennett was doing an excellent job of keeping them ahead of enemy search teams, using her knowledge of space navigation to find hiding spots in the debris field that Vorthan sensors could not penetrate. She was also monitoring the positions of enemy ships and alerting Morrison when they found good opportunities to attack. Captain, there is a group of 3 Vorthan ships moving toward our position, but they are not coordinating their search pattern, Lisa reported. If we time it right, we could hit one of them before the others can support it. Morrison nodded and prepared for another attack. The battle was becoming a deadly game of hide and seek, with the Defiant using speed and cunning to overcome the enemy's superior firepower. So far, his tactics were working, but he knew they could not keep this up forever. Eventually, the would adapt to his methods, or his ship would suffer damage that would slow them down. But for now, the hunt continued, and Morrison was determined to make the aliens pay for every minute they spent in human space. The colony below was counting on him, and he would not let them down, no matter how desperate the situation became. The Defiant prepared for another attack run, racing through the debris field toward their next target. In the engine room, Bobby Clark monitored systems that were running far beyond safe parameters. At the weapons station, War Commander Vexlon stood on the bridge of the Void Render and watched his tactical display with growing anger. The human destroyer had now destroyed 3 of his dreadnoughts and damaged 2 others, all while avoiding serious damage to itself. This single ship was making his entire fleet look foolish, and other Vorthan commanders would hear about this embarrassment if he did not end it quickly. The War Commander had fought humans many times before, but never one who used tactics like this. Most human captains tried to fight honorable battles, ship against ship, using their speed and missiles to stay at long range. This captain was different, fighting like a scavenger instead of a warrior, using debris and surprise attacks to overcome superior firepower. Signal all ships, Vexlon ordered. Abandon formation discipline. All vessels will converge on that human ship and destroy it through overwhelming force. I do not care about coordination anymore. Just kill it. This decision was exactly what Morrison had been hoping for. A spread-out enemy fleet was much easier to fight than an organized one, and individual ships attacking on their own could be defeated one at a time. But the order also meant that 9 Vorthan dreadnoughts would soon be hunting the Defiant with no concern for their own safety. Amy Rodriguez picked up the change in enemy communications immediately. Captain, they are abandoning their formation. All ships are being ordered to hunt us down, no matter what it takes. Morrison nodded grimly. The desperation in the alien commander's orders told him that his tactics were working. But it also meant the next phase of the battle would be much more dangerous. Individual Vorthan ships might be easier to fight, but 9 of them attacking at once would test his crew and his ship to their limits. "Bobby, how are our systems holding up?" Bobby Clark's voice came over the intercom, and Morrison could hear the strain in it. "We are running everything past safe limits, Captain. The reactor is stable for now, but we have blown 3 power couplings, and the shield generators are starting to overheat. I can keep us going, but we cannot take much more damage. Do your best, Bobby. We need to stay fast and stay alive." Morrison looked at the tactical display and saw Vorthan ships spreading out across the system, each one moving to cut off his escape routes. The debris field that had protected them was no longer large enough to hide from so many searchers, and soon they would be forced into open space where the enemy's superior firepower would be overwhelming. But Morrison had been studying the system's geography during the lull between attacks, and he had noticed something interesting about New Terra's 3 moons. They were positioned in a way that created gravitational effects that a skilled pilot could use to increase speed and change direction without using engine power. "Lisa, plot a course toward the largest moon. I want to use its gravity to slingshot us around the system." Lisa Bennett worked at her navigation computer, calculating the complex orbital mechanics that would let them use the moon's gravity as a weapon. "Sir, if we time it right, we can gain enough speed to outrun anything they have. But we will have to get very close to the surface, and if we make a mistake, we will not make a mistake," Morrison said with confidence. "Amy, are you still monitoring their communications?" "Yes, sir. They are definitely spreading out to search for us, but I am also hearing something else. They are worried about time. The Vorten fleet has a deadline to complete this mission and withdraw from human space. This was crucial intelligence. If the enemy was operating under time pressure, Morrison could turn that into another advantage. Every minute the battle continued was a minute closer to their deadline, and a desperate enemy might make mistakes that a calm one would avoid. "How much time do they have?" Amy listened to the alien communications for several minutes before answering. "Based on what I am hearing, they need to finish this mission and leave the system within the next 2 hours. After that, they risk being trapped here when human reinforcements arrive." Morrison smiled for the first time in hours. 2 hours was not much time, but it might be enough if he could continue to delay and harass the enemy fleet. He did not need to destroy every Vorthan ship. Just keep them busy long enough for them to decide the mission was too costly to continue. The Defiant raced toward New Terra's largest moon, with 3 enemy dreadnoughts in pursuit. Morrison's plan was risky, but it would demonstrate something the Vorthan had never seen before. Human pilots were trained to fly in dangerous conditions that would terrify most alien crews. "Lisa, take us into the upper atmosphere. I want to use the planet's gravity and air resistance to help us maneuver." "Sir, that is extremely dangerous. If we go too deep, the atmospheric pressure could crush our hull. If we do not go deep enough, we will not get the effect we need." "I trust your flying, Lisa. Take us down." The Defiant dove toward the moons, surfaced at tremendous speed, with Vorthon ships following close behind. The 3 alien dreadnoughts were committed to their pursuit and could not turn back without losing their target. This was exactly what Morrison wanted. As they entered the thin upper atmosphere, Lisa Bennett showed why she was one of the best pilots in the human Navy. She used the atmospheric resistance to help turn the ship while maintaining just enough altitude to avoid structural damage. The maneuver was so precise and dangerous that most pilots would never attempt it. The pursuing Vorthan ships tried to follow the same flight path, but their vessels were not designed for atmospheric flight. 2 of the dreadnoughts had to pull up to avoid crashing into the moon's surface, while the 3rd ship pushed too far and lost control. Morrison watched on his tactical display as the alien vessel tumbled into the atmosphere and exploded against the rocky surface below. "That is 4 enemy ships destroyed," Danny Pierce reported with satisfaction. 8 dreadnoughts remaining. The Defiant pulled out of its dangerous dive and used a gravitational slingshot effect to race away from the moon at incredible speed. The 2 surviving Vorthan ships that had pulled up were now far behind and struggling to catch up. Morrison's risky maneuver had eliminated another enemy vessel and demonstrated that human crews could perform maneuvers that alien pilots could not match. But the victory came at a cost. The stress of atmospheric flight had damaged their hull in several places, and Bobby Clark reported that their shield generators were now operating at reduced efficiency. "Captain, we have hull breaches on decks 3 and 5, Lisa reported. "Damage control teams are sealing them now, but we have lost atmospheric pressure in those sections." Morrison knew they could not keep taking damage at this rate, but they had proven something important. Human training and determination could overcome superior technology when combined with tactical intelligence and creative thinking. Amy Rodriguez had been monitoring Vorthon communications throughout the atmospheric maneuver, and what she heard made her realize that Morrison's tactics were having an effect beyond just destroying enemy ships. "Sir, the Vorton commanders are starting to question their mission orders," Amy reported. "Some of them are saying that this colony is not worth the losses they are taking. They are also worried about how much time they have left." This was exactly what Morrison had hoped to hear. Military campaigns were not just about destroying enemy forces, they were about breaking the enemy's will to fight. If he could make the cost of conquest higher than the value of the prize, rational commanders would choose to withdraw. But Dexlon was not a rational commander anymore. The war commander had lost 4 dreadnoughts to a single human destroyer, and his reputation would be ruined if he withdrew without completing his mission. Pride and anger were driving his decisions now, not military logic. "All ships, continue the pursuit," Dexlon ordered. "That human ship is damaged and running out of places to hide. We will corner it and destroy it, and then we will complete our mission." Morrison realized that the enemy commander was past the point of reasonable thinking. The Vorton would continue to fight even if it cost them their entire fleet, because admitting defeat to a single human ship would be worse than death for a warrior like Dexlon. This meant the battle would continue until one side or the other was completely destroyed. Morrison had hoped to convince the enemy to withdraw, but now he faced the possibility that he would have to fight every remaining Vorton ship to the death. "All hands, this is the captain," Morrison announced over the ship's intercom. "We have destroyed 4 enemy dreadnoughts and damaged several others, but 8 ships are still hunting us. The enemy commander will not withdraw, so we will have to finish this fight ourselves. Stay at your posts and keep doing your jobs. We are going to win this battle." The Defiant raced through space toward its next engagement, damaged but still fighting, crewed by people who had chosen to stand between innocent civilians and an enemy that showed no mercy. The final phase of the battle was about to begin, and Morrison knew it would test everything his ship and crew had left to give. War Commander Vexlon stared at his tactical display and felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Doubt. 4 of his dreadnoughts were destroyed. 2 others were heavily damaged, and the human destroyer was still fighting. Worse, his fleet's time limit was approaching rapidly, and sensors showed human ships approaching from deep space. The war commander had 2 choices. He could order his remaining ships to withdraw and preserve his fleet, accepting the shame of defeat by a single enemy vessel. Or he could continue the attack and risk losing everything in pursuit of a victory that might cost more than it was worth. Pride made the decision for him. Dexlon had spent his entire career building a reputation as an unstoppable commander who never retreated from human forces. Withdrawing now would destroy everything he had worked for and make him a laughingstock among other Vorthon warriors. "Signal the fleet," Dexlon ordered. "All ships will form a bombardment line and prepare to destroy the colony. If the human ship interferes, we will destroy it as well." Morrison watched the enemy ships move into position on his tactical display and realized what the alien commander was planning. The Vorthon were going to bombard New Terra from orbit, killing 50,000 innocent people to force the Defiant into a direct confrontation. It was a cruel tactic, but an effective one. "They are positioning to fire on the colony," Lisa Bennett reported with alarm. "If they start bombing the surface, there will be nowhere for the civilians to hide." Morrison knew he could not allow the bombardment to begin. The only way to protect the colony was to place his ship between the enemy fleet and the planet, making it impossible for them to fire on the surface without going through the Defiant first. "Take us into orbit directly over the main population center," Morrison ordered. "Full defensive posture. If they want to hurt those people, they will have to go through us." The Defiant moved into position above New Terra's largest city, Her damaged hull and failing shields, all that stood between 50,000 civilians and annihilation. It was a desperate gesture, but Morrison knew his crew would rather die protecting innocent people than live with the knowledge that they had failed in their duty. Amy Rodriguez was monitoring all communication frequencies, including those used by the approaching human fleet. What she heard made her heart race with hope. "Captain, I am picking up signals from Admiral Parker's task force," Amy reported. "They are still 6 hours away, but they are broadcasting on emergency frequencies to let any human ships know that help is coming." Morrison realized that this information could be used as a weapon. If the Vorthan commander knew that a superior human force was approaching, he might decide that completing his mission was not worth the risk of being trapped in enemy space. "Amy, broadcast our battle report on all frequencies. Make sure the Vorthan fleet hears every word. I want them to know exactly what they are facing." Amy began transmitting a detailed account of the battle, including the destruction of Vorva dreadnoughts and the approach of human reinforcements. The message was broadcast in both human and Vorthan languages, ensuring that everyone in the system would hear it. On the bridge of the Void Render, Dexlan heard the human transmission and felt his confidence waver. The approaching human fleet would have twice as many ships as his own force, and his vessels were already damaged from the prolonged battle. If he stayed to complete his mission, he might lose his entire fleet. But retreat was still unthinkable. Too much pride and reputation were at stake, and Nexlon had come too far to turn back now. He would finish this battle with a direct confrontation, flagship against flagship, proving once and for all that Vorthan warriors were superior to human ones. "Signal the human destroyer," Dexlon ordered. "I challenge their captain to single combat my ship against his. Winner takes the system." Morrison received the challenge and understood what the alien commander was offering. A duel between flagships would decide the fate of New Terra without risking the lives of civilians in a prolonged bombardment. It was an honorable gesture from an enemy who had shown no mercy before. "I accept your challenge," Morrison replied. "My ship against yours, but when I win, your entire fleet withdraws from human space and never returns." Vexlon agreed to the terms, confident that his massive flagship could destroy the smaller human destroyer in direct combat. The Void Render was 3 times larger than the Defiant, with heavier armor and more powerful weapons. In a straight fight, there should be no contest. But Morrison had no intention of fighting a straight fight. The past few hours had taught him that conventional tactics were useless against superior firepower. He would have to use every trick he had learned, every advantage his ship and crew possessed to win this final confrontation. "Bobby, I need everything you can give me," Morrison said into his communicator. "Weapons, shields, engines, push everything past Redline. We only need to last long enough to win." Bobby Clark's voice came back strained but determined. "You got it, Captain. I am rerouting power from life support and artificial gravity. We will have about 10 minutes at maximum efficiency before something critical breaks. Danny, what do you see when you look at that flagship?" Danny Pierce studied the massive Vorthan vessel on his targeting display, looking for weaknesses in its design. After several minutes, he found what he was looking for. "Sir, that ship is built like a fortress, but fortresses have blind spots. If we can get close enough to their hull, their main guns cannot depress enough to target us. We could hide in their weapons' shadow and attack their weak points." Morrison nodded. It was a desperate plan, but desperation had served them well so far. The Defiant would have to survive the approach against the flagship's massive firepower, then somehow find a way to damage a ship 3 times her size. The two vessels faced each other in the space above New Terra like ancient gladiators preparing for mortal combat. The Void Render was a mountain of metal and weapons, bristling with gun turrets and missile launchers. The Defiant was scarred and battered, her hull breached in multiple places, but her crew was ready to fight. "All ships, stand down and observe," Vexlon ordered his fleet. "This is a matter of honor between commanders." Morrison took one last look around his bridge at the people who had chosen to stand with him against impossible odds. Lisa Bennett at navigation, her hands steady on the controls despite the danger they faced. Danny Pierce at weapons, calculating firing solutions with deadly precision. Amy Rodriguez at communications, monitoring every frequency for any advantage. And throughout the ship, 43 brave men and women who had volunteered to die rather than abandon innocent civilians. "This is it," Morrison announced to his crew. "One last fight, and then we go home. All hands, battle stations." The Defiant accelerated toward the massive Vorthan flagship at maximum speed, while the Void Render opened fire with everything it had. Space filled with laser beams and missiles as the two ships closed the distance between them. Morrison's ship shook under multiple hits, but Lisa Bennett's piloting kept them on course toward their target. "Hull breaches on multiple decks," Lisa reported as alarms sounded throughout the ship. "Shields are failing. Keep us moving," Morrison ordered. "We just need to get close enough." The Defiant raced through the storm of enemy fire like a missile, aimed at the heart of the Vorthan flagship. Armor plating was blown away and systems failed throughout the ship. But Bobby Clark kept the engines running and the weapons powered at the last possible moment. Morrison gave the order that would decide the battle. "Take us under their hull. Now!" Lisa Bennett pulled the Defiant into a sharp dive that brought them directly beneath the massive enemy vessel. Just as Danny Pierce had predicted, the flagship's main guns could not target them in this position, and for a few crucial seconds, they were safe from the worst of the enemy fire. "Danny, hit them with everything we have left," Morrison shouted over the noise of battle damage alarms. "Danny, Pierce fired every weapon the Defiant still had directly into the belly of the Vorthal flagship. At point-blank range, even their old guns could penetrate the enemy's armor, and missiles found weak points in the ship's hull that had never been designed to take damage from below. The Void Render shuddered under the unexpected attack, and explosions began to spread through its massive frame. Vexlum realized too late that the human captain had found the one angle of attack that his ship could not defend against. "Fire all weapons," Vexlum ordered desperately. But his gunners could not target an enemy vessel that was pressed against their own hull. Morrison watched his tactical display as secondary explosions began to tear through the enemy flagship. "Bobby, give me one more burst of power. I want to finish this." Bobby Clark somehow found the power Morrison needed, and the Defiant's final salvo punched through the Void Render's reactor housing. The massive Vorthan flagship began to break, apart from internal explosions as its power systems failed catastrophically. Vexlon felt his ship dying around him and realized that he had been defeated by an enemy he had underestimated from the very beginning. The human captain had proven that courage and intelligence could triumph over superior technology and overwhelming numbers. "Signal the fleet to withdraw," Vexlon ordered with his final breath as his flagship exploded around him.